Welcome to Self-Publishing Made Simple, the Deep Dive. I'm April Cox, creator of Self-Publishing Made Simple, and this podcast is where we go beyond the basics, breaking down strategy, systems, and smart publishing decisions for authors who want to do this right. Today's episode is a powerful AI-generated breakdown from one of my recent trainings, and it's exactly the kind of depth we're going to explore here. I'll also link the visual roadmap you can download for free to help you grasp the concepts we discuss. Let's get started.
Okay, so you know that specific moment of panic I'm talking about?
Oh, I know it well.
It's that split second right after the euphoria wears off. You finally made the decision. You put your coffee mug down and you say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to self-publish a book.
You have the champagne moment.
Yeah.
You imagine the signing event.
And then you open a browser tab.
Exactly. You open the browser, you type in how to self-publish, and you are just, immediately hit by a tsunami.
Yes. ISBNs, trim sizes, offset printing versus print on demand, metadata, keywords. It's not just overwhelming. It feels like you've accidentally walked into a graduate level engineering course when you just wanted to paint a picture.
It's the classic, I didn't know what I didn't know phase. And that is where dreams go to die, honestly. Most people just stop right there.
Because they realize writing the book was actually the easy part.
The rest of it is a labyrinth.
Which is why today we are doing a deep dive into something that claims to, stop that panic. We're looking at the roadmap to self-publishing success by April Cox.
She runs Little Labradoodle Publishing and a program called Self-Publishing Made Simple.
And what I love about her approach and why we're focusing on it today is that she doesn't start with, how to upload a PDF.
No, she zooms way out. It's a strategic bird's eye view of the entire ecosystem. It's really designed to stop you from making the really expensive mistakes before you've even written chapter 1.
Right. But before we get into the weeds, we have to be clear about who this is for. Because the self-publishing world is massive.
Oh, it is. You have people uploading AI-generated travel guides on one end and people spending years on a memoir on the other. This roadmap is not for everyone.
So who is it not for?
It's definitely not for you if you're looking to churn out low-content journals or you're trying to hack the Kindle store for passive income with low-effort stuff.
This is for authors who view their book as a serious product.
Exactly. We're talking children's book authors, nonfiction experts building a business, or novelists who want a legacy-quality book. If you want it to look like it came from a major publishing house, this is the framework.
Okay, so quality is the goal. And the framework itself is divided into 3 stages: create, build, and share. Which sounds
simple, logical.
Almost too simple.
It sounds simple, but here's the core thesis of this entire discussion. The reason most authors fail isn't because they can't write. It's because they mess up the order. They jump ahead.
Jumping ahead, give me an example of what that looks like in the wild.
Oh, it's everywhere. It looks like hiring an illustrator before you've validated that anyone even wants the story.
Or designing a cover before you know your genre.
Yes. It's like trying to pick out curtains for a house when you haven't even poured the concrete foundation yet. You get excited about the fun stuff, you spend the budget, and then you realize the house is sinking.
So let's pour the concrete foundation first. This is the create stage, steps 1 and 2.
And April calls this the non-negotiable starting line. She says explicitly, if you get this stage wrong, everything else you do is just an expensive assumption.
Okay, step 1 is research and planning. And this starts with a question that I think most of us instinctively want to skip because it feels abstract.
Which is, what does success look like?
Right.
It feels abstract, but it's actually purely logistical. You have to define the destination. Are you writing for legacy, something for your grandkids to have on a shelf?
Or are you writing for brand authority, maybe to get speaking gigs?
Or are you writing for income? Because that changes everything.
How much does it really change the process?
Completely. If it's for your grandkids, you don't need a marketing budget. You don't need SEO research. You just need a nice printer and a good copy editor.
But if you're trying to replace your salary...
You are running a startup. You need a totally different level of investment and market analysis. You have to treat it like a business from day one.
Okay, so once you know why you're doing it, you have to figure out who it's for, the target reader. April has a specific test for this, doesn't she?
She does. It's the one sentence, one community rule.
I tried this on an idea of my own and failed miserably at first.
It's harder than it looks. The rule is, can you describe your ideal reader in one specific sentence? And can you find exactly where they hang out online?
So if you say, my book is for everyone from ages 8 to 80, you've already lost.
You have failed because everyone is not a market. Everyone is a recipe for zero sales.
You need to be able to say something like,
this book is for moms in the Midwest who homeschool children with ADHD. That is a target. You can find those people. You can find their Facebook groups. You can speak their language. If you can't find the where, you don't have a who.
Okay, so we have a hypothesis about the reader, but here's the part that surprised me in the research. The roadmap says you shouldn't just trust your gut. You need to do math.
Yes. The validation logic. This is where you put on your detective hat and go to Amazon. You are looking for proof of life.
Walk us through the specific Amazon check that the source recommends.
Okay, so you search for the top 10 books in your specific category. You're looking for 2 specific warning signs. Warning sign number 1, look at the publication dates. If fewer than 3 of those top 10 books were published in the last 2 years, you run away.
Wait, really? My instinct would be the opposite. If nobody has published there recently, isn't that a blue ocean? A wide open opportunity.
That's the trap. In publishing, a category with no new books isn't an opportunity, it's a ghost town. It usually means readers aren't looking there anymore.
So you want to see a vibrant, active market.
Exactly. Where people are currently swiping their credit cards. You don't want to open a store in a mall that everyone stopped going to 5 years ago.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, what's warning sign number 2?
Review counts. If the top 10 books all have fewer than 50 reviews, the ceiling is just too low.
Meaning even the winners aren't winning very big.
Right. It means even the best books in that category aren't selling enough to make a living. You want to find a category where the top books are moving units.
So you're looking for that sweet spot. Active recent publications and healthy review counts.
And if you skip this, you risk spending a year writing a book that effectively has a market cap of 10 copies. April notes this is the #1 reason authors end up rewriting or relaunching later, which costs twice as much and takes twice as long.
So let's say we pass the test, the math works, we move to step 2, writing a revision. Now we all know we need to write the book, but is there specific methodology here?
There is. The mantra for this stage is, clarity comes from completion, not perfection.
Oof, that is tough for perfectionists. I'm the type who edits the first paragraph 40 times before writing the second one.
And that is the death of a manuscript. The roadmap suggests a specific workflow to break that habit. First, just write the draft. Do not edit.
Just get the clay on the table.
Exactly. Second, you revise for structure and flow. Only then, at the very end, do you clean the manuscript.
And there's a financial reason for this too, isn't there? This isn't just artistic advice.
Absolutely. This is about being a smart project manager. If you hand a messy, typo-ridden, structurally confused draft to a professional editor, you're going to pay them top dollar to do janitorial work.
You want them to focus on making the book great, not just making it clean.
Right. You do the cleanup so they can do the magic.
Which brings us perfectly into the next phase. We have validated, we have a clean manuscript. Now we move to the build stage, steps 3, 4, and 5.
This is where the rubber meets the road. Up until now, the book has just lived in your head or on your hard drive. The build stage is where you turn it into a product that competes with Simon & Schuster or Penguin Random House.
And step 3 is comprehensive editing. I feel like editing is a word that non-writers misunderstand. They just think it means spell check.
Right, and the source is categorical here. Professional editing is non-negotiable. If you want to be taken seriously, you cannot self-edit. You're too close to the work.
But we need to distinguish the levels of editing because this confuses people.
Let's break them down. First up, you have developmental editing. This is the architecture.
Big picture stuff.
A developmental editor doesn't care about your commas. They care about your story. Does the pacing work? Is the character's motivation clear? Does the nonfiction argument actually convince the reader?
So they're the ones who might tell you to delete a whole chapter or rewrite the ending.
Exactly. And if you skip this, you might have a book with perfect grammar that is completely boring or confusing.
Then comes copy editing.
Yep. That's the line-by-line polishing, smoothing out the prose, checking for consistency, and then finally, proofreading.
The final safety net.
The final sweep for typos.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here because it's the current year. Why can't I just feed my manuscript into ChatGPT and say, edit this? It's free, it's instant. Why pay a human thousands of dollars?
It is the question of the year. And the roadmap has a very specific warning on this. AI is great for surface-level cleanup. It can catch a misspelled word or a passive voice sentence.
But it can't feel.
It cannot feel. It cannot evaluate structure or emotional resonance. And AI can't tell you, hey, This joke in chapter 3 actually undermines the tragic moment in chapter 4. You need a human heart to edit a story that's meant for human hearts.
So AI for the broom, humans for the blueprints.
Perfectly put.
Okay, let's talk about step 4, which is specific to a huge chunk of our listeners. Visual artwork, especially for children's books.
This is the most dangerous step financially. April Cox works with a lot of children's authors, and she sees people lose their shirts here.
Why is it so risky?
Because it's the intersection of art and business, and new authors often forget the business part. The source highlights 2 massive pitfalls. First one, contracts.
This is about who owns the art, right?
Correct. You need a work-for-hire agreement or a contract that explicitly assigns full rights to you. There are horror stories of authors paying $5,000 for illustrations, publishing the book.
And then realizing they can't use the characters on a t-shirt.
Or a website. Because the artists retain those secondary rights. It's a nightmare.
What's the second pitfall?
Payment terms. Never, ever pay 100% upfront.
It sounds obvious, but I guess when you're excited, you just want to get it going.
You get excited or you want to be nice to the artist. But if you pay in full, you have zero leverage. If the artist ghosts you or delivers work that looks nothing like their portfolio, you are out of luck.
So pay for milestones.
Pay for milestones. Sketches first, then pencils, then color. You protect your cash flow.
Okay, step 5 in the build stage is design and formatting. This is the cover and the interior. And I want to zoom in on the cover.
The cover is not art.
Wait, what?
The cover is not art for your wall. It is a billboard. It's a marketing tool.
And the biggest mistake authors make is designing for their own personal taste.
Yes. Oh, I love the color teal, so my thriller novel should be teal.
But thrillers are usually black and red and bold.
Exactly. And that's the point. Readers use visual shorthand. If they see a pastel cover with a cursive font, their brain says romance. If your book is actually a gruesome murder mystery, you have just failed.
You have to design for what the target reader expects.
Not what looks pretty to you. It's 100% signaling. And don't forget the interior. Margins, font size, white space.
Because if a reader opens the Look Inside feature and sees a wall of tiny text, they're gone.
They click away. It just signals amateur.
Okay, so we've validated the idea, written a clean draft, and built a professional product with good editing and design. We are ready to launch. This is the share stage, steps 6, 7, and 8.
And the theme here is momentum. This is where the work shifts from creative to executive.
Step 6 is marketing and visibility. And the roadmap drops a truth bomb that I think pains a lot of introverted writers. Marketing starts before a book is finished.
Way before. If you wait until you upload the book to start talking about it, you are already 6 months behind.
But what are you talking about if the book isn't done?
You're talking about the journey, you're sharing sketches, you're asking for input on character names, you are building an audience. And here is a key insight from April. Focus on the email list, not just social media.
Why? Social media feels so much easier.
Because you don't own your Instagram followers. The platform owns them. The algorithm can change tomorrow, and it has. And suddenly nobody sees your posts.
But you own your email list.
You own your email list. And the source makes a specific comparison. It says 50 engaged email subscribers on launch day
Just 50
are more powerful than 5,000 social media followers.
That's a stark ratio. 50 versus 5,000.
Because those 50 people are in your living room. The 5,000 people are just driving by on the highway. Those 50 subscribers are the ones who will actually click buy when you send that email.
And where do we find these people? The advice was go where the readers are.
Which means leaving your comfort zone. If you are writing a children's book, your audience is not other writers on Twitter.
Your audience is in parenting groups, it's school librarians.
It's grandparents. You have to go to the watering hole where your specific thirsty horses are gathering.
Let's move to step 7, pre-launch prep. This is the 60 to 90-day window before the book drops.
This is where you assemble the launch team.
Explain this concept. Is this just your mom and your best friend?
Hopefully more than that. A launch team is a group of people. You can aim for 20 to 50 who commit to reading the book early. You give them a free digital copy.
And in exchange?
They agree to post a review during the very first week of publication.
Why is that first week so critical? Why not just let reviews trickle in over time?
Because of the Amazon algorithm. It loves velocity. It wants to see traction immediately. If a book drops and gets 20 reviews and 100 sales in week 1, Amazon says, ooh, people like this, and starts showing it to more people.
But if it drops to crickets?
Amazon buries it. You have to engineer that initial spark.
So the launch team lights the match. That leads us to step 8, the book launch itself.
And we need to reframe the word launch. A launch is not a day, it is a season.
That's a relief, actually, because usually we think of pub day as this huge make-or-break moment.
It puts way too much pressure on one Tuesday. A launch is typically a 4 to 6 week period of intense activity. You're doing interviews, running ads, doing email blasts. You are trying to sustain that velocity we talked about.
And how should we measure success here? Because the temptation is to stare at the sales dashboard every 5 minutes.
Don't do that. It's so bad for your mental health. The metric isn't just day one sales, it's traction and discoverability.
So a successful launch sets the book up for long-term sales.
Exactly. If you sell 1,000 copies on day one and then 0 for the rest of the year, that's not a business. That's a fluke. You want a launch that pushes the book high enough in the rankings that organic strangers start finding it.
So to recap this whole journey through the roadmap, we create by validating the market and planning the destination.
We build by investing in professional editing and reader-focused design.
And we share by building momentum months in advance and launching with a dedicated team.
It really circles back to that core warning, don't jump ahead. The anxiety and overwhelm usually come because you're trying to solve a step 7 problem when you haven't even finished step 1.
April has this quote in the outro of the material that I found really grounding. She says, "You're not behind, you're just at the beginning."
I love that. In the age of social media, it's so easy to compare your messy chapter 1 to someone else's polished chapter 20. You don't need to know how to run Amazon ads today.
You just need to know how to validate your idea.
Just do the next right thing.
It shifts the focus from the entire mountain to just the trail right in front of your feet.
Precisely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave the listener with one big thought. If they take one thing away from this roadmap, what is the mindset shift they need to make?
It brings me back to something we touched on at the start, but I want to push it further. It's about identity. When you look at this roadmap, contracts, marketing, validation, analytics, it becomes very clear that the writing part is actually quite small.
Right. Writing is just step 2 out of 8.
Exactly. So here's the provocative thought. If a book is a product, then the author is a business owner. This roadmap is essentially asking you to stop treating your book like a hobby or a pure art project.
And start treating it with the respect of a business venture.
Yes. The question isn't just can you write? The real question is, are you ready to stop being just a writer and start being a publisher?
Because those are 2 very, very different jobs.
They are. The writer creates the art, the publisher protects the art, and ensures it finds an audience. This roadmap isn't teaching you how to write. It's teaching you how to become the CEO of your own creative life.
That is a powerful place to leave it. Are you ready to be the CEO of your book? A huge thank you to the source material from April Cox and Little Labradoodle Publishing for laying out such a clear path through the wilderness.
It's an incredibly valuable resource.
And thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next one. Keep climbing that mountain, one step at a time.
Thank you for listening to Self-Publishing Made Simple, the deep dive. If this episode helped bring clarity to your publishing journey, be sure to download the free visual roadmap at roadmap.selfpubmadesimple.com. It will walk you step by step through everything we discussed today. And if you notice the format of this episode, yes, it was intentionally created using AI tools that allow authors to transform their ideas into high-quality audio experiences. I'll be sharing more soon about how you can use these tools to amplify your voice, expand your reach, and build momentum without adding more hours to your workload. Because today's authors aren't just writers, they're publishers, creators, and CEOs of their message. I'm April Cox, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.